Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Spider-Man. Spider-Man from 2017. This is an animated series, ran 3 seasons, 58 episodes, each of them about 22 minutes or so each. And this came out at the time that the first Tom Holland Spider-Man came out. Yeah, of course, you're going to watch the Spider-Man film. It ties in the MCU and has all these connections, kind of a new reboot of all the other, so many other Spider-Man animated series. I remember the live action series from the 70s. And of course, there's some in India or Japan and all sorts of different things. Spider-Man has been, the story of Spider-Man has been retold so many times because he is the flagship character, the most iconic character of the Marvel Universe, owned by Sony. In film form, but Marvel themselves in the core can do animated series. And if you wanted to be a kid, if you're a kid and you just can't get enough Spider-Man, they're new to this whole Spider-Man character is in the movies and he's hanging out with Iron Man and Captain America and they're doing a Civil War and all sorts of things like that. Well, hey, you know what? You're going to want to watch this cartoon. And yeah, this is definitely positioned more for a younger audience. It is, yeah, it's also it has a very strong animation style, very clean, it looks more anime than most other series. And in fact, it is the most recent of all of the Spider-Man animated series, at least until next week, when the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series launches on Disney Plus, and I will watch that on the day that it releases. So watch for that. I've already picked it out. I don't remember which day offhand. I think it's the 29th. And that's the day I'll be watching and reviewing it and talking about it. So we'll have 2 animated Spider-Man series in a week's time, practically. So yeah, this is a good little jumping off point for that. We get a lot of voices that you might recognize. John DiMaggio, Fred Tatasciore, and I'm sure I said that right. I know I always say that name wrong. Robbie Daymond, by the way, plays Spider-Man. But there's tons of other voices which you may recognize from other cartoons. One of which is Patton Oswalt does the voice of Uncle Ben, even though Uncle Ben doesn't technically appear in the first episode, which is called Origins. Yes, we get the Spider-Man origin we've seen so many times before. And the same thing that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko created back in 1962, 63. My brain is crapping out. I can't remember. It was back then. So what we get here is the old, hey, I just got bit by a spider, and now I got to learn how to use my powers, and this is what I can do with my powers. I'm going to jump off buildings and assume that I'm going to land okay and not hurt myself. Yeah, those kind of good decisions that a person makes. Making his webbing, making his costume. It sort of smooshes that all in really quick in 22 minutes without making it into a big deal. But it has to be told. Unlike the films, which the Tom Holland films go a different direction. You notice that the Tobey and the Andrew Garfield movies also did the origin, but the Tom Holland movies went a different direction, which is really nice that they did that. In the animated series, I think they all do it as well, because you have to have Spider-Man. You can't have Spider-Man without the story of, with great power comes great responsibility. And so a lot of people back in the early Tom Holland films were like, hey, you know what? Why are we not hearing that line like all the time? That question was answered by the time No Way Home came out. But in this case, we get that origin all slammed together. You know, he becomes a professional wrestler. He, of course, when he has the opportunity to stop someone from escaping their crime, well, of course, that same criminal shows up and is the one who's responsible for Uncle Ben's death. And they do that because this is also very kid-related. They're very sensitive about it. There's no you don't see anybody getting shot. Let's say that. There's a bullet that leaves a gun, but it's more abstract in a sense. And you have Peter talking about how his uncle's life was lost. And yeah, it's sort of done in a quick voiceover thing. A lot of this is Peter giving a voiceover to his entire experience with this. In fact, he's talking, because it's the modern day, and it's a version of Spider-Man that we couldn't technically have done in previous animated series or even live or film versions, because the dynamics would be completely different and the technology wasn't there. Peter is talking into his phone. He's looking at a device and just going, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what happened. This is how I got my powers. Like, he's putting it all on record, which seems like it would be a really bad idea. I wonder if there's going to be a story later on that goes, hey, I found your phone. Oh, I got to keep the phone away from the people who will discover who I really am. Oh, will Aunt May find my phone? Like, he's treating it as like a science experiment. He's going through all the scientific process to determine who he is, what his powers are, and how he's going to use them. And that scientific process plays out throughout the first episode. And he's just giving away his entire origin into his phone, which just seems like a really bad idea. But it's a vehicle that works for us as viewers to be able to say, he can't be telling it to a friend of his. He's not going to tell Harry Osborn. He's not going to tell, there's no Mary Jane or Gwen yet. There's Liz Allen, but he's not going to tell Liz Allen. Like, he's not going to tell Aunt May. So other than him just talking to himself, something that kids can identify with is, hey, you know what? I'm on YouTube. I'm going to tell a story about who I am. And that's how it works. I really hope he deletes whatever's on there, because that just seems like trouble. Anyway, not just actors, not just the tropes that we're used to with Spider-Man. Oh, before I move on, Stan Lee is there. He does provide a voice of a cameraman at the studio where they're filming the wrestlers, and he's in the hallway interviewing this new wrestler that's Spider-Man. And there's one point that this is probably the best acting that Stan Lee has ever done, because it's 100% truthful. And I have a feeling he shows up multiple times throughout the series with a camera on his shoulder. He's the watcher in a sense. In this first episode, I'll spoil only one thing, which makes it worthwhile watching. And he and Steve Ditko created the character. And as Peter lets the robber get away and not stopping him because he's got to get on the stage to fight a wrestler, Stan Lee, but not as Stan Lee. He just looks like Stan Lee. He sounds like Stan Lee. He's holding a camera and goes, hey, kid, what do you got to say about this moment? This is a pretty big moment. I have a feeling you're going to remember this night for the rest of your life. Yeah. It is the most important night of Peter Parker's life. Yeah. So that's a little tiny bit of irony that is clearly voiced by Stan in this moment, which makes that episode and that scene, that episode, just perfect. Even if the rest of it just seems like a rehash of something we've seen so many times before. Moving on to what I was going to say before, there are tons of characters. Of course, you'll recognize Iron Man and Captain America, but we also got, of course, villains. You got Dr. Octopus. You got, I think the Rhino is in this. Venom is in this, definitely. Mary Jane does show up, but only like for a few episodes, voiced by Felicia Day, a natural redhead. So Joe Quesada shows up, the former editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. So there's a lot of comic book people and a lot of actual actors who are just living out their fantasies of being part of a Spider-Man cartoon. Between Patton Oswalt and Felicia Day, I think they've been doing the new Mystery Science Theater 3000 too as well. So, I got to go through some of the other characters you'll see. Ms. Marvel. Amadeus Cho as the Hulk, the different Hulk. You'll see. Did I said Ms. Marvel. We'll see, I think we're going to see. Oh yeah, we're going to see Black Cat, Captain America, and Iron Man are both voiced by actors who have voiced those characters many times before in other cartoons. Roger Craig Smith as Captain America and Mick Wingert as Iron Man. These days, if you need somebody to do a Robert Downey Jr. voice without Robert Downey Jr. doing Iron Man, you get Mick Wingert. So yeah, he's all over that. Jim Cummings, of course, has to show up somewhere because he's an animated voiceover actor, and Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and Hondo Anaka from Star Wars. He also plays Hammerhead. He plays a gangster in this. He's not a shark. At least I don't think so. But yeah, you get all the classic villains. You get a few newer villains that some people may not know. Some that have been created in the last few years that may not have appeared in a Spider-Man cartoon before. So that's kind of fun. You'll get to see. I don't know if I think Miles Morales shows up in this. I don't know. But I think part of the fun of this is getting, little surprises here and there. So, Silvermane Hippo Craven. Yeah, maybe Craven that somebody will see. Oh my gosh, there's so many voices. I'm not going through them all. Doctor Strange is in this. Moon Knight is in this. Yeah, that's wow. And also Meg Donnelly. She plays Scream, which is, I think, a symbiote creature. Man. Oh, shoot. This is what I get for just constantly scrolling here. Mark Hamill shows up, and he plays Arnim Zola. Something tells me he's played Arnim Zola before in a different cartoon. There's this era in the last few years where a lot of the cartoons crossed over between like Avengers and the Hulk, that kind of things. I think this Spider-Man might be part of that. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. But either way, it looks like a fun time. Definitely, if you need more Spider-Man in your life, need more cartoons that you haven't seen, and you haven't already grown up with this one, definitely check it out. It looks like a good time. Again, the first episode did a fair job of just cramming in the origin, and you could probably skip it if you already know the origin really, really well. But you got to understand, one, the Stan Lee cameo makes it 100% worthwhile, just because he says what we're all thinking, and it just you get a feel for the animation style. It's definitely has anime influences, and it's definitely a product of its time, the era of animation. Very different from Across the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales and everything else. So it's good. We'll have to check. You'll have to check it out. I might be watching more of this eventually. I could mark it off right now, but seriously, I have a billion other things that this is 58 episodes. I'll get to it eventually. Let's pick tomorrow's episode. 146. If you didn't know already, things are chosen randomly most of the time, unless it's like a big premiere. These things are chosen randomly for me by this device, and it matches to a number on a spreadsheet, and oh my gosh, I'm going to see this movie. I don't think I've seen this movie since the year it came out in theaters. Yeah. I don't think I've ever watched it like on VHS or on DVD. It's a Robin Williams film, and I don't think it was originally on Disney Plus. It eventually came over. It might have been a Fox film. I don't know for sure, but we are going to watch this. It'll be interesting to see this for the first time in so long for me. We're going to be watching Mrs. Doubtfire. Yep. Mrs. Doubtfire, starring Robin Williams. All right. we'll finish this up. Mrs. Doubtfire's what we're watching next on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.